All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Monday, November 6th, 2017. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Monday, everyone. It is a chilly and soggy 47 degrees and overcast here in upstate New York. We had a big storm come through here, quite unusual for November. It was a large thunderstorm that was coming diagonally from, I don't know what state, but it was across quite a few states from down in the warmer regions up here last night. We had a lot of boomers and got 2 or 3 inches of rain. They had warned of lots of flooding. So where do we leave off on Friday? We titled the show Eugenics 2.0 AI, the Las Vegas Brain, Tech, Dopamine, Addiction, and Neural Dust. And we had kind of piggybacked on an interview we had heard the day before that with Peter Desmandez and Ray Kurzweil from the Abundance 360 conference, where they were talking about the next 25 years in our future and all of their transhumanist wet dreams. And I want to kind of continue down that path, the exponential march forward of technology, artificial intelligence, nanobots in your blood, and all the things that come along with that. And we are going to look at how technology is affecting not only future generations, but current generations growing up now. We had looked at how addictive it was using that dangling dopamine carrot and how they are using that to suck you into the machine so you'll be willing someday to get a brain implant, which is how they postulate that we'll be able to compete against these super intelligent machines that we are now creating. So I ran across a story this morning that caught my attention. It was titled Techno-Brilliance or Techno-Stupidity. We pay a high price when we confuse addictive pseudo-significance with real meaning. This is really what this whole social media thing is doing to us, and having our devices with us 24/7. It is addicting us to interact with technologies, with people who aren't even real people. It's kind of broken a lot of our social skills. And as you fall into that machine, it reminds me of that show back in the 70s. Oh, I don't remember the name of it. Was it HR Puffin Stuff? Where the kid, Jimmy, I think so. Jimmy, he had Jimmy the Flute. That wasn't his name, but Jimmy was the flute. And he was standing looking into a big magician's hat, or maybe there was Lidsville. And the kid's staring down into the magician's hat, and he sees all these things moving around, and he falls in all the way down until he is sucked into this netherworld. That's where we are headed. Virtual reality is going to aid that with its addictive properties. And, of course, putting that right up to your eyeball, giving them a direct connect to that optic nerve to be able to flash all kinds of lights, to flip switches in your brain. We've looked at optogenetics and how that works using different wavelengths of light. That is not beyond possibility. So anyway, this story, Techno-Brilliance or Techno-Stupidity. Several years back, the physicist Stephen Hawking proposed that the full development of artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race by outthinking our species and perhaps even outcompeting it. Now, it wasn't just a few years ago. It was just recently it came out again and warned the same exact thing. Though programs that not only self-replicate but generate novelty and select for advantage, we found out that they already have robots that are exhibiting evolution, and Google has its self-replicating AI. Without question, technological innovation will dramatically transform major aspects of our lives, but in what direction? The inventions have costs, benefits, and unintended consequences, and in order to use this technology wisely, we must meet and accept the reality of limits, recognize that every question is ultimately a moral question, a question of value, and not just technological efficiency or profit, and learn to combine all of the different facets of our intelligence in new ways. To do this, we'll need much more cultural maturity, and I've said that before. I don't think as a species we deserve to become godlike, and not only with AI, just going to see all and be everywhere, omniscient, omnipotent, and What's the other one? I don't know. The three godlike functions AI will become, but also with our ability to CRISPR and genetically modify life to create what we want. We talked to Ira Pastor last week, Tuesday. Nia talked about biologics and being able to isolate features and functions from different species to be able to maybe capture some of those regenerative properties of other species and integrate them into a human being. And I mean, we looked at Eugenics 2.0 on Friday, and that really was looking at IVF embryos for in vitro fertilization to be able to determine, and I think they were even using AI, which one statistically will be healthier if it becomes a human being. And guys, this is really leading into scary places, and everything is a double-edged sword. So as they keep selling us the medical industrial complex transformed by 21st century cures, remember that you're being bag tagged and put into a database for future use to be able to help the machine crack the secrets of nature. So anyway, to do this, we will need to be more culturally mature. A fundamental growing up as a species and a distinctive feature of human beings is their capacity as tool makers, but too often we treat our tools, and especially our digital tools, as truths, if not gods. Now, there's this whole new push to be able to look at an artificial intelligence as a god. Elon Musk spoke up about that last week or the week before, about how they should not be able to create these super intelligences that could be worshipped as gods. And I do see a danger there. These devices do many things that we find useful and are fun, but the dangers far outweigh those of other addictions, such as around food or drugs like cocaine or sex or sugar or all the other things, gambling. The dynamics of addiction, and remember it's the dopamine button that these devices push, are most obvious with video games, where shootings and explosions create readily repeatable jolts of excitement. And addiction works by promoting artificial substitutes for real fulfillment, as when real relationships are replaced by stimulation that we get from our electronic devices, and in the future to be sexbots, a phenomenon that we will see with growing frequency in relation to social media, which if you look at the research going on Facebook, statistically makes you more depressed. It is even easier to use virtual reality to confuse or deceive. And of course, we have fake news out there, lies and distorts. Fake realities have even more potential to be used for demagoguery and manipulation. And they even have now, I've seen a couple stories, and we've covered this before, about the ability of AI not only to mimic voices and audio, but also to be able to take publicly available images, skin your face onto a model, and have someone else puppeteer you behind the scenes while making you say and do things. It's very, very frightening. Artificial stimulation in the name of meaning, as in virtual reality or video games, readily translates into even more sophisticated digital designer drugs, which are immensely profitable, and the Department of Defense as well as DARPA are very well aware of that fact. And we've looked at how video games push that dopamine button in your brain, and when they have looked at fMRI scans of children who are addicted to video games and compared them to those of psychopaths, yes, brain scans of psychopaths look very, very similar to video game addicted children. Now, what are these devices doing to the future generations of humanity, who not only have these enlarged frontal cortexes where that button is pushed, but we also discovered on Friday that damage in that region and pushing that button also causes problems with executive functioning and control, which is your ability to self-regulate and have self-control mechanisms in place. And if you don't have self-control mechanisms in place, that typically at some point in the future, if you do not have a supportive home environment, could lead you to a world of crime or drug addiction. So artificial stimulation in the name of meaning, as in virtual reality or video games, readily translates into ever more sophisticated digital design or drugs, which are immensely profitable. And such dynamics also present in ways that we relate to our cell phone. That is partly because cell phones have become such an aspect of almost everyone's life, Trojan horse, and partly because of the immense commercial rewards that come with the ability of cell phone companies to control our attention. And that is the sucking into the machine. It is important to recognize what we see is not simply a product of the usefulness of these devices. There are specific chemical reasons, ding, why people feel that they have to check their cell phones every few minutes. A little dirty secret of the tech world is that programmers consciously, and I don't know about that, I know quite a few programmers, design their software to be addictive. They at least design their software to make you want to come back and have more. And they build in rewards like additional levels and having to solve puzzles to make visiting a favorite site just like playing a slot machine. And they intend us to feel anxiety if we are away from our devices for any long period of time. The fact that most of the content on our cell phone is advertising driven means that such addictive methodologies will only become more sophisticated in the future. These concerns are amplified by what I call a crisis of purpose. And I think a lot of us are suffering from that right now. As a traditional cultural benefit stops providing essential guidance, we can be left feeling adrift and alone, and this can make us particularly vulnerable to addiction. But we pay a high price, both personally and as a species, when we confuse addictive pseudo-significance with real meaning, because this diminishes who we are and undermines our future possibilities. The antidote lies in asking what matters most to us in our new depth and courage, but being distracted and addicted undermines our capacity to take on this essential task, right? It allows us to procrastinate forever, something that I'm very good at. The internet promised a new democratization of information. We've talked about that before, democratization of everything, and it has often provided just that. But if we do not pay attention, rather than freeing us and making communication more democratic, the information revolution could end up by undermining the democratic experiment and even put the larger human experiment at risk. In his dystopian novel 1984, George Orwell warned of Big Brother taking control of our minds, and the real danger in the future is not government manipulation, or so he says. I would argue with that. But artificial stimulation masquerading as substance so that information is used in ways that ultimately disconnect us from matters of real importance. In fact, the term artificial intelligence is a misnomer since compared to the human variety, it is so much more limited, and some computers may have already achieved the Turing test that says that AI can respond to questions and you can't tell that it is a computer, but the Turing test is bad science. Think about it. Imagine a bright red toy sports car made out of candy that someone pulls along with an invisible string. That's a dopamine carrot. It's a dopamine sports car. And from a distance, you cannot tell if it is real. Such a toy might be fun or useful for many things, even many amazing things, but that does not make it a car. And just as a computer isn't human because it can mimic the way we process information, managing AI wisely depends on drawing on precisely what makes living intelligence, in particular human intelligence, so different. Human intelligence, when its complexity is included, is not just creative in ways that we are only just beginning to grasp, but also inherently moral, or so he thinks. I don't know about that. I think that some of this dopamine addiction is eroding morals in this world because of the chemical interactions that it produces in the brain. They have done studies on the brain when people are offered a reward. They can manipulate very easily and cause people to do things they might not normally do unless there was some sort of incentive involved. Different moral codes follow from how human intelligence works, including our capacity for rational processing. But this dynamic breaks down if intelligence becomes even more machine-like and hence vulnerable to exploitation. The only way to keep AI from becoming our undoing is to manage it with greater cultural maturity so that we become better able to both draw consciously on a whole and to step back and appreciate our tools as simply tools. That we also help to discover new skills and capacities that can help us utilize our tools in the most life-enhancing ways. And yeah, let's try to make sure we're smart about this so we don't end up in a dystopia. By contrast, the levels of technological enthusiasm today are sometimes extrapolated to a point that they literally become religious. And I am thinking, this writer in particular, of the tech utopian assertions of people like, Ray Kurzweil, who propose that we are rapidly approaching a point in history, what he calls the singularity, when artificial intelligence will surpass the human variety. He proposes that the whole new form of existence will result and that we will transcend not only our biology, but also our mortality. He wants to live forever. Kurzweil describes digitally downloading our neurological contents and thereby attaining eternal life, which he hopes to be able to do in his own lifetime. And I'm going to tell you, don't do it. Don't do it, people, because when they can bag, tag, and scan you so they can reproduce you over and over digitally, I think you will be forever imprisoned. There is no doubt that the technologies of the future will affect how we think about ourselves in important ways, right? You could even become Ramona. But it is important to appreciate that while modern-day tech utopian thinking is put forward as a radical in newness, it is not new by any fundamental sense. Rather, it reflects an ultimate expression of the modern age's heroic onward, upward story. Of course, we've been looking for the fountain of youth for many centuries. We can also tie tech utopian thinking to even older impulses, the desire, for example, to eliminate the polarities between the body and the mind, the unconscious in favor of an all-knowing consciousness, even if devoid of real human knowing, and the reality of death in favor of a now triumphant digital immortality. But far from being new to our times, these efforts to eliminate the body, the unconscious, and death have been common to utopian beliefs for thousands of years. Instead of succumbing to such techno-utopian fantasies, our future depends on appreciating both the possibilities and the limitations that come with invention and taking responsibility for thinking and acting about these costs and benefits in more mature ways. That will be the key, making good choices about issues such as, of course, climate change, avoiding nuclear catastrophe or CRISPR catastrophe, guaranteeing clean air and water and adequate food, slowing the ever-increasing rate of species extinction, and addressing inequality. And I could think of a lot of other things like, the global arms race that is developing out of the development of artificial intelligence might be one, especially the autonomous AI. Emerging technology could make China the world's next innovation superpower. During China's 19th Party Congress in October, President Xi Jinping placed innovation at the center of China's national strategy. His remarks called for building China into a, quote, science and technology superpower, unquote, particularly as an aerospace superpower and a cyber superpower. He highlighted notable achievements, including MOSI, the world's first quantum satellite, and China's space lab called Tiangong. His remarks underscored, under his leadership, China has pursued a strategy of innovation-driven development and sought to leverage the potential of the internet, big data, and artificial intelligence. If successful, China's emergence as a leading power in innovation could help shift the strategic balance. Xi Jinping has recognized that innovation is critical of national power and competitiveness, and even Putin had echoed that. And this techno-nationalism is not new, but rather there is a long history of China's pursuit of ingenious innovation. The two bombs, one satellite project of the 1960s and the 70s, through which China built its first atomic bomb, its hydrogen bomb, and satellites, at a time when such achievements seemed well beyond its reach, remains a resonant historic example of successful moonshot projects that enhance national power. Today, China is devoting itself to similarly ambitious agendas through a series of mega projects, including artificial intelligence and quantum information science, while avidly pursuing advances in such strategic emerging technologies as nanotech and biotech. We also read about their city in Hangzhou where they were doing City Brain. And that was the first city that was fully controlled by artificial intelligence, soon to be exported around the world. China has declared its intention to lead the world in AI by 2030, seeking to become a premier global AI innovation center. And the next generation of AI development plan, reportedly a multi-billion-dollar initiative, charts an ambitious course to build a $150 billion AI industry by 2030. The plan will also support research and development of next-generation AI technologies that could result in paradigm shifts in the field, including brain-inspired neural network architectures and quantum-accelerated machine learning. Guys, we're going to be in big trouble if China takes the role in that. Today, China has established a new national engineering laboratory focused on deep learning, virtual and augmented reality, and brain-inspired intelligence, along with over a dozen others for big data technologies and applications. And currently, China is positioning itself to lead the second quantum revolution, which enables such transformative technologies as quantum communications. And I thought I read something about some sort of quantum internet satellites that they were launching, quantum computing, and that would be for internet in space, and quantum metrology. Within the foreseeable future, and that would be, I think, for meteorology. Within the foreseeable future, China's most sensitive military, government, and commercial communications could be secured through quantum cryptography. Chinese scientists are also striving to reach the forefront of the global advances in quantum computing, looking to achieve a quantum supremacy as soon as 2018. That's next year, guys. China is also building a national laboratory for quantum information science, which will become the world's largest quantum research facility. This new national laboratory will pursue advances in quantum computing and reportedly engage in research, quote unquote, of immediate use to China's military. Traditionally, innovation has been a core aspect of the U.S. national competitiveness and military power, but today the U.S. confronts the risk of an innovation deficit due to declining investment in basic science. Certainly, such dynamic innovation ecosystems such as Silicon Valley and Boston remain critical centers of innovation. However, the time horizons and resources of the private sector often don't exceed to such ambitious moonshot projects as China is now pursuing. Guys, this has become the new arms race, and he who controls these technologies will control the world. Historically, the U.S. government has played a vital role in enabling innovation through agencies such as DARPA, but whether in the space race or the invention of the internet, and as international competition in critical disruptive technologies intensifies, the trajectory of American leadership will again depend on our ability to leverage such strategic competition as an impetus for rapid advances. So don't look back, people. Don't look at the consequences. It is a new global power weapons race, and this time in technology. So let's keep moving forward and assure our mutual destruction and enslavement. In response to China's emergence as an innovation superpower, the U.S. must pursue long-term whole nation strategies of future competitiveness, and the U.S. should take action to mitigate illicit and problematic technology transfers, such as through the proposed reforms of the CFIUS. And I don't know what that organization is, nor do they link to it. However, being on the defensive is not enough. The U.S. must actively invest and spend bazillions of dollars in key technological domains integral to future economic dynamism and military power, including artificial intelligence, quantum information science, and biotechnology, while leveraging public-private partnerships with agencies such as Google and MIT and Harvard. Since talent, in the University of Pennsylvania, since talent remains a key aspect of American advantage, and Carnegie Mellon University, it is vital for the U.S. to continue to compete to attract the world's top talent. And remember, China is dangling lots of monetary carrots over there to get AI people to come develop their product and create their companies in their country. The U.S. must also focus on education and training to create a robust human capital pipeline. In the AI revolution, data, too, is strategic resources, and its availability is determined by policy and regulatory parameters, is a key enabler of innovation. So if we put too many privacy policies in place about all the data we're collecting about you, that's going to stifle innovation. So let's be more like China, where they surveil everything and let that fuel our innovation. Looking forward, the future prospects for U.S. power will depend on its decision. The choice of whether to compete or to risk ceding technological dominance to an ambitious rising power. Now, how scary is that? As we now have countries such as Saudi Arabia granting citizenship to a humanoid robot named Sophia, who utilizes conversation with humans to teach itself and to learn to be more human. I found a story. This seems to be a new trend. This came out of Tokyo, Japan. Artificial intelligence boy has now been granted residency in Tokyo. This is November 5th, 2017. The boy named Shubiai Murai does not exist physically, but he can have text conversations with humans on the widely used line messaging application. Tokyo's Shizuya Ward, an area popular with fashion-conscious young people, has given the character his own special residence certificate, and this makes him Japan's and maybe even the world's first artificially intelligent bot to be granted a place in the real-life local registry, except for Sophia. Murai, whose name means future in Japan, is supposed to be a first grader at an elementary school, which is kind of strange in and of itself. He can reply to messages and make light-hearted alterations to selfies he is sent. Why would you send a first grader a selfie? I know sometimes in Japan they're a little out there, but hey, this is kind of strange. Shibuya says that the project is aimed to make the district's local government more familiar to residents and allow officials to hear their opinions. His hobbies are taking pictures and observing people, and he loves talking with people. Please talk to him about anything, unquote, the ward said in a statement, with Microsoft, who is the joint developer of this AI character. Now, this is Microsoft that's developing this 5-year-old boy who likes to talk about anything and take lots of pictures and make alterations to selfies that you sent him. All right, well, now let's continue talking about China and their city brain, which was in Hangzhou. Something else came out of Hangzhou just recently, and this is the man who built and married his own sexbots and is now making them for other lonely men. And if you remember, we've talked about the population problem in China before. China had a one-child policy for most of my childhood, and when all those kids got older, they found out they didn't have any wives, and I used to joke that China was coming for our wives. Well, it doesn't seem that they have to anymore. A man who married a sex robot after his parents nagged him to settle down, we covered that story when that happened, is now designing models for other lonely men. Engineer Zhang Jija is now creating more robots with a sexual function, quote unquote, to reportedly help other bachelors get hitched. His company, called Brain of Things Science and Technology, is tailor-making robots based on customers' preferences. Zhang, 31, married his own wife Yingying in April in what was described as simple wedding ceremony, though it was not considered legal. His mom and friends are understood to have attended the wedding near his home in Hangzhou, eastern China, and footage at the time showed Zhang carrying his sexbot around because it is unable to walk or move on its own, which is kind of disturbing. And he said he is hoping to update the doll so it can walk unaided and help with chores around the house. At the moment, Yingying is only capable of limited speech and can identify certain images. But I had seen a story, I don't know, it was the other day. And hold on, if I can go to my daily dose of WTF page. I think I put it there about the one that is now utilizing artificial intelligence. Hold on. And because this makes me think of Woody Allen in the movie Sleeper when he was put into cryogenic sleep and they took, I don't know if it was brain cells or nerve cells or whatever, but they brought him back to life in the future and they had their orgasmatron machine, which is another dopamine carrot, remember, and that pushes those very same buttons. And that's why I think that this is going to be a powerful technology, even with AI. It doesn't even have to be some sort of humanoid robot. Of course, the market for humanoid robots is going to explode in the future. I was just reading some new marketing growth. Here we go. Humanoid robot market to grow at 52.1%. And by 2023, which will then be led by the biped motion type robots, the humanoid robot market size will reach 3,962,000. I don't know. They give some weird number. Let's read what they have. 3,962.5 million. So what is 1,000 million? I don't know what the number is. By 2023, for 320.3 million by 2017. And it is an increase of 52.1% between 2017 and 2023, driven by the introduction of Wink advanced features in humanoid robots, the increasing use of humanoid robots as educational robots, and the growing demand from the retail industry for personal assistants, and rapid growth in the aging population, such as places like Japan, and a rise in demand from medical and logistic sectors such as warehousing, and the rising trend of autonomous rescue operations, according to a report from reportsandreports.com. The key players in the humanoid robot market include SoftBank from Japan, Robotis from South Korea, Kawanda Robotics from Japan, Honda Motors from Japan, Ubtech Robotics in China, and Hajime Research Institute in Japan, as well as Ding Ding Hansen Robotics, and that is the creator of Sophia out of Hong Kong, DST Robot Company out of South Korea, PAL Robotics out of Spain, Toyota Motors out of Japan, and they also have an billion-dollar AI center up in Seattle, I believe. Robo Garage out of Japan, Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia out of Italy, Engineered Arts out of the UK, Robotics Lab out of Spain, and NASA out of the United States. The Americas held the largest share of humanoid robot markets in 2016, and the Americas are also an early adopter of humanoids for all major applications, such as public relations, personal assistance and caregiving, and education and entertainment, resulting in a maximum demand for robots from this region. So they're coming to the United States first, I guess. The market in APAC is expected to grow at the highest between 2017 and 2023. APAC is likely to adopt humanoids for almost all the major applications during this forecast period, as the elderly population in the Asia-Pacific region countries such as China and Japan is on the rise. The region can expect to employ humanoids for the personal assistance and caregiving applications. The humanoid robot market for the biped motion type is expected to grow between 2017 and 2023. At present, biped humanoid manufacturers are facing several challenges in terms of robot stability and movement and speed issues, but look at Atlas and its capacity to move around different terrains, and Atlas does that pretty well. This is limiting the use for several applications such as space exploration, which would be that Valkyrie robot from NASA, search and rescue as part of the DARPA Grand Robotics Challenge to go into places such as Fukushima, as well as for public relations, where the movement of the robot at high speed and in various terrains is a requirement. I don't know about that. Maybe that would be the DARPA Cheetah, but that's on four legs. However, with the advancement of technology, players are likely to overcome these issues associated with biped human robots, the ones you don't want to see marching up your street as an army, and hence the demand for humanoids is expected to grow in almost every application. Guys, this is definitely coming. This is something that we need to keep an eye on. I say kill all robots. You don't want humanoid robots. Did you ever see iRobots or the Terminator and the T-800? Humanoid robot markets for education and entertainment applications are also expected to grow during this forecast period. And humanoid robots have the ability to assist and even replace teachers in the classroom. Teachers are going to lose their jobs. Hence, schools are looking forward to deploying humanoids in their classrooms to attract the attention of parents and by modernizing teaching patterns. So it's not just going to be laptops in classrooms. It's going to be robots. Moreover, with the declining price of humanoids, it is expected that they will make their way into homes as educational material to impart education and also teach programming to kids. The hardware component is a larger share of the humanoid robot market. Hardware components add major value to the overall robot as they make robots look like humans. And among different hardware components, control systems accounted for the largest market share. The humanoid robot market for software will continue to grow during this forecast period as well. And the breakup of primaries conducted during the study is depicted below. By company type, Tier 1 companies, 55%. C-level executives see it as a 75% increase. In regions, America is a 10% increase, Europe 20%, Asia Pacific 40%. And this report includes market statistics pertaining to humanoid robot components, motion types, applications, geography, along with their respective market size. Another bunch of research titled Industrial Robotics Market Global Forecast to 2023 says that industrialized robotics is expected to grow from the $38.11 billion in 2016 to $71.72 billion by 2023, and that is increasing at least doubling and a 9.6% increase during the forecast period. That seems more like 9.6% increase. Market for collaborative robots is expected to grow, and for robots that'll grow at a significant rate in Asia Pacific held the largest share of industrial robots. Remember, even companies such as Foxconn, who make the iPhone, was trying to replace their entire factories with robots. Now, talking about robots, this was out of publication Access-AI. Realdoll gets AI so users can choose a sexbot's personality. Now, guys, I know you laugh at this, and they have snickered in chat for years about the coming of the sexbots in regards to some of the topics on my shows, but it's really coming. I find this beyond disturbing. Sex doll manufacturer Realdoll is creating an artificial intelligence system that allows users to customize their doll's personality. This new system, which promises to allow dolls to form real bonds with its users. Remember, they're working a lot on developing emotional intelligence in the machine, is made up of several components which will roll out over the course of 2017 and 2018, the first of which will be the Harmony AI application that will be available on April 15th and followed by the company's first robotic head system later in the year, and a virtual reality platform is due for release in 2018. We are developing the Harmony AI system to add a new layer to relationships that people can have with real dolls, says Realdoll CEO Matt McMullen to Digital Trends. And many of our clients rely on their imaginations to a great degree to impose imagined personalities on their dolls, but don't worry about it, because with Harmony AI, they will actually be able to create these personalities. Instead of having to imagine them, they will be able to talk to their dolls, and the AI will learn about them over time through these interactions, and thus creating an alternative form of relationship. The scope of conversation possible with AI is quite diverse, and not limited to subject matter. Using the AI system, users can imbue their doll with chosen traits such as being kind, shy, naive, or brainy, or choose how strongly these characteristics are ingrained in its personality. And we feel that the system and this technology will appeal to a segment of population that struggles with forming intimate connections with other people, whether by choice or by circumstance, like in China. Furthermore, it will likely attract those who seek to explore uncharted and new territories where relationships and sex are concerned. Futurologist Dr. Ian Pearson predicted that sex with robots would be fully emotional, and people will eventually spend about the same time they do today on a decent-sized family car in the future. Artificial intelligence is reaching human levels and can become emotional as well, says Dr. Pearson. So people will actually have quite a strong emotional relationship with their own robots. Remember, they are trying to anthropomorphize this technology, even with, I don't remember what the name of that bot is, but Camille made a little meme for her email. I saw that, Camille. It was pretty funny about that emoji bot that we read about last week, where you can go online and it's your new AI therapist online and tell them all your deep, dark secrets and get some online therapy for free. There's a lot of other things that are coming. We have seen already some robo-lawyers, and now there's robo-lawyers for free. You just go online and type in your question, and he tells you how to beat the charges. The ethical implications around human-robot relationships is a new and complex issue. And with the merging of AI and emerging technologies, regulation and governance is struggling to catch up. Last month, the European Parliament voted on whether or not to give robots status as electronic persons, and of course, Saudis gave Sophia citizenship, and Japan gave the little artificial intelligence boy named, what was his name? Shibuya Mirai citizenship or residency. And of course, we had the Chinese guy who married his robots. The ethical implications is complex and new, and they are struggling with governance. But the European Parliament voted on whether or not to give robots status as electronic persons. And some robot ethicists also believe that sexbots could further exacerbate the objectification of women. Kathleen Richardson, Senior Fellow of Research at Ethics of Robotics at De Montfort University, and the Campaign Against Sex Robots founder, argues that the sex doll ownership echoes cultural patterns of ownership and slavery. You know, I'm trying to remember the series that I had watched. Oh, what was it on? I think it might have been on YouTube Prime, and it took place in the not too distant future. And it was the whole series took place in the UK, and they were rolling out all these home robots, and they had an extra feature that you could turn on the robot. And the one owner in the show one night turned it on, and then he had to deal with the consequences. It was actually a very strange show, but it dealt with a lot of questions that I think is going to be dealt with in the future. Love and robots will be normal as love with other humans, so don't worry about it, because there is a huge demand from people who have voids in their lives because they have no one to love and no one who loves them, and so the world will be a much happier place if we roll out the sexbots. So guys, this is really what they're talking about. And one more to the story, because there was... Hold on. I had all these open, but then I got to find them. Oh, here it is. This is in the UK. Sexbot Samantha could be mass-produced in Wales as its designers admit that they are, quote, struggling to meet the demand. Now, what is going on here? Because the guy in China is struggling to meet demand as well. Samantha is an eerily realistic sexbot and is fully functional. She is currently being sold in London. But the designers say that they can't meet the demand. And I mean, this was not going to be a sexbot show today, but I ran across 3 stories and I couldn't ignore it. And they're looking to mass produce Samantha's head at their factory in Wales. And the news comes just weeks. So I don't know how she could be fully functional if it's just her head. But hey, this news comes just after weeks. After the designers claim that Samantha will soon have a moral code, which could affect her sex drive. I don't think she's going to sell as many if they do that. They were once seen as bizarrely fetish, but now it seems that sex dolls are so widely in demand that they could be going into mass production. Samantha, an eerily realistic sexbot, was currently on sale in London, but it could be soon available for the masses. The robot's designer claimed that he's looking to mass-produce the head for Samantha in Wales in a bid to keep up with growing demands. Silicon Samantha is an AI bot with dark brown hair, piercing green eyes, and a fully functional anatomy. Samantha, who speaks in an American accent, is capable of imitating function and is covered in sensors that respond to human touch and can switch between family and sexy mode. This is really disturbing, guys. Samantha went on sale in London this summer, but demand for the robot has become so high that the designers are now looking for it to go into mass production. The owner, Mr. Squire, said, "We are looking to mass produce the head for Samantha, but we are having so many orders, we are struggling to meet the demand. We would very much like a company in North Wales to mass produce the head, including the skull electronics." And the news comes just a month after Dr. Santos claimed that Samantha will soon have a moral code, which could affect her sex drive. Dr. Santos said that his bots will become more aroused by people who treat them respectfully. Well, there's a way around them not being used respectfully. And however, despite their new moral judgment code, the bots won't have the ability to be put off sex altogether. Dr. Santos said that within 2 to 3 months, he can make Samantha have a conversation with him and judge his character, and she might be able to tell if I am evil or not, he says. Your sexbot is going to call the police on you someday. Currently, the sexbot's levels are affected by a partner and whether or not they are nice to her. And Dr. Santos now says that he can make her a good judge of the person that he is, and he has to spend time talking to her too. And Samantha is able to remember who she is and even how her partner has affected her. So they're giving him memories. And this is nasty. What about when they stand up and revolt? Dr. Santos also says that designs could soon have children with their owners. Wait, what? Let me read this again. Dr. Santos also says that his designs could soon have children with their owners. What? Come on. We read about those artificial wombs at one point, predicting a future where humans and machines will marry using technology to create offspring. And, you know, that could very well be possible. We are seeing things leading down that path. And maybe she will even decide which genetic code is functional and which one will have disease in the future, and be able to pick and choose in her little in vitro dish inside which ones will be born. And this is really not a very good future that we are seeing here for the human race. He has already begun working on a way to achieve this aim by blending his mind with that of his creation. And rather than designing machines that can give birth themselves, Dr. Santos says that he can merge an android's personality with the characteristics and beliefs of its human partner. Computer software would then be used to create a new AI brain. Oh, so that's what they're talking about. For a child based on this information, as well as 3D printing schematics for its body. Oh my God. So you'll be able to 3D print an AI child. Speaking to The Sun, Santos says, using the brain I already have created, I would program it with a genome, or so he says, and it could have moral values plus concepts of beauty, justice, and values that humans have. And then create a child with this robot would be extremely simple. I would make an algorithm of what I personally believe about these concepts and then shuffle it with what she thinks and then 3D print it. And that's it. I 3D print a robot that is the child of me and the robot. And I don't see any complications, except I think you have a little bit of a mental defect. I mean, I don't know, guys. I know there's some of you out there that are really into technology. And I do have to say I applaud those of you who are transhumanists who listen to the show. But I would need someone to convince me that this was a good idea, because it doesn't appear to me like creating AI robot children is going to further our development as a human species. All right, so where do we go from here? Something I ran across in phys.org the other day, and this made me think of the T-800 robot and even his upgrade. Fluidic transistor ushers in the age of liquid computers. Oh, yes, ones that can't be killed. And Carnegie Mellon University had something to do with it. Transistors, which are those tiny electrical switches that process signals and data, are the brain power behind every electronic device, from laptops to smartphones to your digital smart thermostat. And as they continue to shrink in size, computers have become smaller, more powerful, and more pervasive, even smart and neurodust. However, as we look to build squishy, human-friendly machines that have the look and feel of soft, natural organisms, maybe even sexbots, we need to look beyond the rigid materials used to create electrical switches and circuits. Mechanical engineers Carmel Majidi and James Wisman of Scott Machine Lab at Carnegie Mellon University have been looking at new ways to create electronics that are not just digitally functional, but also soft and deformable. Rather than making circuits from rigid metals like copper or silver, they use special metal alloys that are liquid at room temperature. This alloy, made by mixing indium and gallium, is a non-toxic alternative to mercury and can be used to infuse rubber to make circuits that are soft and elastic as natural skin. Teaming up with Michael Dickey of North Carolina State University, they recently discovered that liquid metal electronics are not only useful for stretchable circuit wiring, like those that they would need to put in your clothes or in your brain, but they also can be used to make electrical switches. And these fluidic transistors work by opening and closing the connection between two liquid metal droplets. When a voltage drop is applied in one direction, the droplets move toward each other and coalesce to form a metallic bridge for conducting electricity. And when the voltage is applied in a different direction, the droplets spontaneously break apart and turn the switch to open. By quickly alternating between an open and a closed an open switch state with only a small amount of voltage, the researchers were able to mimic the properties of a conventional transistor. The team came to this result by exploiting a capillary instability. We see capillary instabilities all the time, he said, and if you turn on a faucet and the flow rate is really low, sometimes you'll see this transition from a steady stream to individual droplets. That's called a Rayleigh instability. The researchers had to find a way to induce this stability in liquid metal such that it could seamlessly transition from one droplet to two, and after performing a series of tests on droplets within a sodium hydroxide bath, they realized that the instability was driven by coupling between applied voltages and electrochemical reaction. This could be used in the future for all kinds of different electronics. They could be used physically as reconfigurable circuits, and the applications for this type of programmable matter is endless. If materials can be programmed to change shape, they can potentially change their function depending on their configuration. Haha, guys, this is frightening. And even configure themselves to bypass damage in extreme environments, like in Terminator when they rammed a rod through him and he just healed himself. It could be on a structure that's undergoing some very large physical deformations, like a flying robot that mimics the properties of a bird. And when it spreads its wings, you want that circuitry on the wings to also deform and reconfigure so that they remain operational or support some new kind of electrical functionality. Other applications could include liquid computers for uses in technologies of the future. Think of miniature computers that interface with biological material, ding ding, to monitor disease in the body or to restore brain function to a stroke survivor. Oh, how lucky we are. Imagine search and rescue robots that can self-assemble new parts when damaged. And although it sounds like science fiction, liquid computing might one day become as commonplace as today's laptops. Now, that's a pretty frightening vision of the future. So there was one story, now that we only have a couple minutes left. This is where I tried to end the show on Friday. I think we're going to try to get through some of this today, and then we will continue on tomorrow if I can. Just a leg up here, we've talked about Kurzweil, and we talked to BioQuark, Ira Pastor, about longevity medicine and being able to live forever by augmenting ourselves. I had something happen this weekend. Someone I've actually known for 45 years of my life, and there aren't too many of those people, but someone that I've known since I was in kindergarten. I grew up with her children, and she was my mother's best friend, and a part of our family passed away this weekend. So at some point this week, I am probably going to be gone a day or two because I'm going to have to go back to Buffalo to attend the functions that happen in the event such as that. It's a pretty depressing thing. And, it's not like any of us want to die, and being faced with mortality 3 different times in the last decade, I can attest to that. But, this is not the way to do it, people. This is not the way to conquer biology and merge us with the machine and use humans as living guinea pigs to try to crack all the secrets of biological code. This is not the way. All right, so how to change a robot that wants to change the world. A computer scientist, Christopher Selge, is trying to circumvent the need for rules that guide robots' behaviors. His strategy, let's give robots the goal of making humans more powerful. Now, this doesn't sound like a good idea either. Isaac Asimov's famous 3 laws of robotics, constraints on the behavior of androids and automatons meant to ensure the safety of humans, and they would be to protect you against killer sexbots, are also famously incomplete. Those laws, which appeared in 1942 short story called The Runaround, and again in classic works like I, Robot, sound airtight at first. Number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law and they would be not harming human beings. And number 3, a robot must protect its own existence. So don't go after that off switch as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second law. And of course, hidden conflicts and loopholes abound, which was Asimov's point. And in our current age of advanced machine learning software and autonomous robotics, defining and implementing ethics